Let's celebrate. Are you fucking serious? Alright, now let's celebrate. Alright, let's go through all these poppers and see if one works. Nope. Nope. There we go. Hello ladies and gentlemen of the internet, it's RJ, and today we'll be doing something a little bit special. To commemorate the channel reaching 200 subscribers, instead of one review, this video will instead feature 3, and if you don't feel like watching the entire video since it's most likely going to be long, individual timestamps will be left in the description for your convenience. Starting off with this celebratory travesty, we have Ultract's first Renewal figure. And big surprise, it's the first Ultraman. Starting with articulation, this figure really doesn't do anything particularly special, namely because it's the first Renewal. Obviously the head does the same thing every other figure in this line does. Not really anything noteworthy there. The neck isn't very good, namely because it barely goes forward, but you can get this chicken bob thing going on, which is pretty cool. Pretty standard shoulders. They look like they're set a little bit more back than they should be. Anyway, ball joint at the connection of the body. Nice spicy hinge. That looks natural. Double hinged elbows. Ball hinged wrists. Ball hinged chest. As you can see, there's a red strip there, so it's a little bit more consistent if you have it all the way back. Ball joint for the midsection. Pull down hips, which have not aged very well, but that's not really the figure's fault, that's the engineering fault. Very high kicks. Thigh swivels. Double hinge knees. I'm assuming this is just because the figure's been reissued about a million fucking times. The ankles are very loose. As you can see, I'm not really putting forth any effort and they're just kind of kicking around. It's not a huge deal when posing the figure, but it does like to kind of tilt forward or backwards. We have the ankle rockers that are terrible. It's pretty standard fare. And then a very bizarre toe hinge because it doesn't really move forward or backward. Moving on to detail is a very interesting case, namely because, well, it's not necessarily an accurate figure. It's a very nice looking one, aside from some very interesting issues. Been using the word interesting a lot to just substitute for bad because people say I'm too negative. However, as you can see, he looks jacked, which is worrying. Very large arms. Now, I said earlier this figure's been reissued a lot. That was not just an offhanded statement, there are molding lines all over this figure. Here they are on the back of the legs, you can see it's starting to eat away at the paint. Here's a nice production seam on the side of the leg, I don't know what better to call that. The silver paint on the head is a little bit sloppy, namely towards the forehead. I feel like there might be a fingerprint, I doubt it, that might just me being weird. Color timer looks very nice, eyes look very nice, pretty par for the course for the line. So yeah, the only thing that really keeps this figure from being too accurate is the fact that he's very muscular. It's all throughout, it's not just this area. Very muscular biceps, very thick legs. His feet look like shoes, which I guess that's relatively accurate, but I felt like I needed to point it out. I'm not quite sure why. Hands are very nice. The silver is a very nice shade. The application is a little gross looking in a few spots. The red is pretty nice overall. Moving on to accessories, this figure is surprisingly very well varied, considering it's an early Ultract figure. Comes packaged in the box with a pair of fists, pair of chopping hands, pair of fighting pose hands, I guess you would call these, since that's usually how he fights in the old series, an effect part for the Spatium Ray and the Ultra Cutter, a pain-in-the-ass color timer, a slot for the brother's mantle which he doesn't come with because it's Bandai, the flight stand adapter which they stopped using because it's Bandai, and finally we have these impact effects that he's kind of slot behind the figure's feet and he looks like he's kicking up a lot of dirt. For packaging we have this very nice silver, red, and gray box. We have the Ultraman logo, which I'm quite fond of. We have the color timer in the middle. Very nice picture of the prototype. Have a window. The side has absolutely nothing, which is pretty cool. Very nice matte finish on the back with some prototype pictures. Here he is in the hunched over wrestling pose that he assumes in the show. No bluefin sticker. Nothing on the top except for clear plastic and lots of dust. And then we have Ultraman staring at us and his freakishly large belly button. Scaling, as you can see, is a relatively standard size Ultra Act figure. He absolutely dwarves the SH Figuarts Ultraman stuff, and he's a little bit shorter than a vinyl figure. Alright, round 2. And it just fell on the floor. Next up, we have Skullman himself, the SH Figuarts Shinkocchou Seihou Kamen Rider Skull. Starting with articulation, this is the exact same body that Double had. This is not an exaggeration, they have the exact same joints, save for the head sculpt. That's not even a joint, that's just a sculpt difference. Anyway, we have a ball joint for the head as well as for the neck. The scarf is on a hinge, as you see the hat just left. Now, the hat is a little bit of an issue, namely because if you keep it resting on the head without a cover, it apparently likes to transfer paint. I personally have not had this issue, probably because I live somewhere very cold. However, when buying this figure, you are presented the option with a plastic cover. Just know that it makes the hat fall off pretty much constantly. The figure is not going to have his hat on his head if you have the plastic cover on. Hinge and ball joints for the shoulder armor. Basic Figuarts setup for the elbows. The fuck, the elbows? These are the elbows. The shoulder, mind you. Bicep swivel. Ball hinge for the wrists. Incredibly limited torso range. He's kind of wobbles back and forth, and that's about it. A hinge for the lost driver. Inset double Figuarts hips. Little bit of a thigh swivel right there. Double hinge knees. The good Figuarts ankles, but there's a cover so they're a little bit more limited. A very, very tight toe hinge. And there's your lot. Something about this figure just feels very uncomfortable to move. Maybe it's because it looks so premium and I'm afraid I'm going to ham-hand it. Something just feels off about posing this figure personally. Moving on to detail, much of what I said in my double review is pretty relevant here since they're pretty much the same figure. However, let's talk about what's new. The head is gorgeous. It's got a very nice pearlescent finish with black eyes, and you can see some texturing up close. The scarf, once again, very nice, looks like actual cloth. The dry brushing on it is phenomenal. The lost driver is just a double driver, but one of the things is gone. It looks nice though. As you can see, the memory is not in there. That's because I've hidden it in the skull magnum for safety. Silver bands are nice, no slop, as are the ribs. Silver on the shoulder armor is very nice. Just this matte black finish all throughout the figure makes it look excellent. It covers the articulation very nicely. These jut out very badly. I'm not sure what that is. I don't recall them being this prominent on the suit. Feet look very nice. Everything about this figure looks nice. Hat. In initial pictures, it kind of looked like the hat was a little bit small. It must have just not been very good photography because it sits on the figure's head just fine and it looks very nice. Mine tipped over a lot, so there's a very nice scuff mark on the side of it. It's more my fault though. Now moving on to accessories, purely for brevity's sake, we're just going to show the entire accessories tray instead of putting everything on the figure. We have two hats, one with the gunshot tear in it and it just flew out of the box. We have the skull crystal head, which, funnily enough, is not actually one separate piece. You just kind of clasp it onto the head joint. We have the hat that doesn't have a tear in it. We have a nice wind-muffled scarf. We have the skull magnum. We have Skull's briefcase, complete with a double driver and no Gaia memories. We have 5 pairs of hands. And that's about it. And by that's about it, that's pretty much everything the character needs. There's so much of it that I didn't feel like blowing a minute and a half on the video showing everything on screen. For scaling, here Skull is with his contemporaries, and as you can see, is about the same size as them. Starting with Mebius' articulation, after the first 2 entries, this one's gonna knock your socks off. The arms rotate 360 degrees at the shoulders, and the waist kinda awkwardly pivots around. This figure was released to coincide with the movie that the form appeared in, and despite its age it looks very... Oh wait, no it doesn't. Alright, now that's just me being a little bit unfair. The eyes look terrible. However, the rest of the figure looks very nice. It's cast in a red vinyl. All the markings are present, and the back actually has paint on it. Look very carefully, folks, because this is the last time you're going to see this one for a while. Silver is very nice, the gray is very nice, all the raised markings throughout. We have the split color timer. We have this thing which predates orbs. I don't know what you would call that. So really the only weak point here is the eyes. Even then it's really just the white parts on the eyes that make it look like he's kind of cross-eyed. And finally we have scaling, and as you can see, he's about as tall as he probably is supposed to be. About a head taller than an Ultra 500 figure, another head taller than Zophie, and a little bit taller than Bogal, such is tradition for older figures. And with that marks the conclusion of the 200 subscriber special. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I hope you stick around for the next milestone. If you didn't enjoy it, I'm frankly surprised you watched to the end of this video.